Smith, Bradley Kendall, Evan McDowell in the production room in the back. And we are here to talk another hour of college football with you. It's time, man. It's game week. Getting excited. Kickoff just a few days away. But for those that don't know, we are, after further review, we had a show here over the summer at WCCP, Saturday mornings 11 to 12. And the radio station was kind enough to ask us back, fill in a time slot this fall. And we are really excited to keep the ball rolling. So, Bradley, let's dive right into it after further review.
After further review, there's a player on our schedule for Clemson football this year that no one's talking about that really could do some major damage, not only against our hometown Clemson Tigers, but against the ACC and maybe nationally as well. We'll get to more on that later. Jay, when you touched on it earlier, it's 2 years now. I think our anniversary is on September 19th.
September 19th.
Hopefully Twitter doesn't recognize us as just a 2-year-old kid and actually a 2-year-old business and not kick us off. But it's been fun. We transitioned over here to the 7 o'clock time slot now on Monday nights, and we're excited to follow up a legend in the making, Walt Deptula.
You know, just walking around campus today, you could feel the excitement. It's, like I said, game week. Lots going on. We got Furman this weekend. We will touch on that preview later in the show. One of the things that we want to talk about at the start here, the AP poll came out last Monday, I believe. So just quickly, Bradley, just go through some of the highlights on that end.
Yeah, I saw a stat earlier this week, and originally looking at the top 25, everyone's got their predictions and their opinions on it. Some different than others. Some of the ones that stuck out to me originally off the bat, the top 4 I can't really argue with. I thought the AP poll committee decided to knock down Ohio State a couple spots. It was probably warranted after the whole Urban Meyer incident, which was not bad at all. But Auburn being top 10, that raises some eyebrows. Miami being very high. I thought one in particular that kind of stuck out to me was Notre Dame. All the way up at 12 after, a pretty
they were 10
decent
win last season
last year.
They were 10 win.
With all the losses that they had, though, that they suffered. That was a little bit raised some eyebrows to me.
We talked about this over the summer, the fact that ESPN has them in the playoff.
Yeah, they were the 4th best predicted team according to ESPN, which was kind of amazing. I was glad the AP poll at least had some sense to not put them in the top 4, but 12 was a little bit high for me. Some of the underrated teams I saw in there, Oregon was one for me at 24 that I think could really make some noise, that could really jump into the rankings later on. UCF's probably a little bit disrespected down there. In Orlando at 21, they probably wish they were a little bit higher than that.
Do you think that there's a specific conference that was disrespected in these rankings? Because, you look at the top 10, it's kind of by the book. You've got 2 SEC schools, top 3. You got the 2 Big Ten teams, 4 and 5. You got an ACC school up there at 2nd, then Miami down there at 8. You got some Big 12 teams, or Pac-12 teams, with Washington. But do you feel like there's a specific conference in particular that got shafted, or is it just pretty much as it should play out this season?
Yeah, I don't know about a particular conference. I think maybe the group of 5 teams maybe felt a little bit disrespected. I think across the board, the Pac-12 was honestly probably a little bit underrated coming into this season after last year's debacle in the bowl season.
Yeah, I would say their bowl season was abysmal.
So to see a couple teams, like 3 teams, the top 15 for them, that's probably pretty encouraging. I think the group of 5 teams were the ones that really stuck out to me with UCF and Boise State. Even a team like Memphis that was on the outside looking in that wasn't even in the top 25. The one that I can't understand is how Florida was ranked number 27 overall after a 4-7 season last year.
Second team receiving votes.
Yeah, come on. You get some of the teams below them. Oklahoma State had a 9-4 season last year. Even Florida Atlantic was good. Arizona's an up-and-coming team.
NC State only got 22 votes.
Yeah,
there were some good schools that didn't get a lot of love.
I don't see the love for Texas either at 23. That doesn't seem...
It ain't a top 25 preseason poll without Texas.
Exactly. And, one of the interesting points that we saw about the top 25, I was listening to the Mark Packer show. We had him on about a month ago. It blew me away. 16 out of the last 17 years, a team that's been in the top 10 in the preseason has failed to finish in the top 25 at the end of the year. That's amazing if you really think about that. 16 years in a row.
Yes, you're right. It is surprising. I think really it speaks more to the fact that we can take this preseason AP poll and throw it out the window. It honestly, there are some things I think that are accurate, but you and I kind of agree, and I think Evan does too. Most of it really doesn't matter.
No, it does. The AP poll, they do their best. They usually are pretty spot on with their predictions, but yeah, there'll be that one team like a Florida State last year that had an unexpected injury that will fall out of it. If you had to look at a team right now in that top 10 that would fall out towards the end of the season, it was very tough to pick one. I went with Miami. If you've listened to the show before, I'm not exactly high
He's not a huge Canes fan.
Teams that start with M, I'm usually very biased or unbiased about. Miami, Michigan, Michigan State, Mississippi State. Miami was the team I really just, if I had to pick one, that would be the one I would choose. Coming off last season's 3-game losing streak.
Yep.
The defense is going to be talented. We know that from last year's turnover chain incidents. But with Malik Rozier coming back, 14 picks, 54% completion percentage. He's got talent around him, but he's just not that good of a quarterback.
Mark Richt's a great coach, and I'm confident that he will be able to turn Miami into a consistent winning program. They will, I think, get to a point where they're able to contend for conference championships every year. I'm not saying they're going to win conference championships every year, but I think Mark Richt proved at Georgia that he has the potential to always be in the conversation. So I'm not going to discount his ability to coach up a player like Malik Rozier and possibly turn him into a great quarterback. But at the same time, I think those are fair criticisms, because I was pretty high on Miami last season, much to your chagrin. And towards the end of the season, I definitely was opening my mouth, inserting my foot, because they just finished the season in abysmal fashion.
Beautiful thing to see. Washington get blown out the year before that, and then Miami go on that losing streak down the year. It made me feel a little bit better about my roasts against you. But that would be my team. I just think Miami offensively are a little bit jumbled up. Defensively, they're good, but you lose that first game against LSU, and they're going to be searching for answers down there in Coral Gables.
One team I think that could finish outside the top 25, and a lot would have to happen, but I think it's Ohio State. And I'm not necessarily picking them because of the off the field issues, although that does factor in. You can't ignore it. But I think TCU potentially, without Urban Meyer, may be able to beat in week 3.
They're going to beat TCU. Come on.
A road game.
I could coach Ohio State and they would win that game.
A road
easily.
game at Penn State. I feel like it's a tough environment. They have games at Michigan State. They have Michigan to close the season. Obviously, that's a rivalry game. They're losable games. I think it's a stretch, and I do think that a lot of times a team like Ohio State, because of the brand recognition, is given the benefit of the doubt and kept in the AP poll, even when it's not deserved. But I think that's the only team that I see having the best chance.
Evan, what about you? You got a team up there that's looking like it could be a disappointing season for them?
Yeah, I went with Auburn as my ranked team in the top 10 that's going to finish outside the 25, just because I don't like the way their schedule lines up for them. They have a tough schedule. They got to open the season, first of all, with Washington at what is quote-unquote a neutral site game, but in Atlanta, I don't know how neutral I would consider that. But then they got to go on the road at Mississippi State, at Georgia, and then they got to play the Iron Bowl at Bama. Like, those are tough games. I could see Auburn, losing all 4 of those potentially.
I mean, I think they got a great D-line. I think their D-line is the only thing that's comparable to Clemson. So I think I hear what you're saying. I just think that Auburn's defense is going to keep them in games. We do have a call, though. I believe he's still on hold. Harry Skipper, let's see if we can go ahead and get him on air. Harry, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can. Hello?
Yes, sir. Hey, how you doing?
I'm good, brother. How you doing?
Doing well. What questions can we answer for you this evening?
Well, I'd like to know why everybody thinks Kelly Bryant should be the starter at Clemson.
Yeah, I mean, we touched on this. Evan and I actually had a bet on this last year, whether Trevor Lawrence or Kelly Bryant would be the starter right now. I think the starter role right now is probably a little bit overblown. I think in terms of who's actually going to play later in the year, it's still kind of up in question. Dabo kind of just had to make a decision going into week 1. I think Kelly's probably the safest pick, but both quarterbacks will play week 1.
And seniority, I think, is something that Dabo values tremendously. I mean, you look Cole Stout, Deshaun Watson. It was a few games before Deshaun got that starting role. So I think there are certainly arguments where you could make having Trevor start week 1. I just think with how Kelly performed last year, first-year starter, won 12 games. To my knowledge, no other Clemson first-year starter has ever done that. Getting us to a playoff. I don't think that we need Trevor Lawrence to win a national championship. I think we can do it with Kelly Bryant this year based off of our returning starters on defense and all the weapons we have on offense. I understand people, feel like that Trevor, and I'm not saying he isn't. I think that he's going to be a all-time great player at Clemson. Hopefully we'll see his name on Death Valley at some point in the future. I just think, when you look at what Kelly did last year, he threw fewer picks than Deshaun. He led us back to a playoff. I mean, he didn't perform well in that game, but overall, I think most people were thrilled with how he did in a quote-unquote rebuilding year.
Hey, that's a great answer. Hey, Phil Kornblue.
Say that again.
Say that one more time.
Kornblue. Phil Kornblue.
Phil Kornbrute.
Kornblue.
Kornblue. Is that a player or?
No, he's a dude that announces on the radio.
Oh, I'm not familiar.
Okay,
I'm not familiar with him, but hey, well, we appreciate you taking.
That's okay.
We appreciate you taking the time
Thank
to call
y'all very
in.
much. Y'all have a great day.
Yes,
You
sir.
as well,
You
sir.
too.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Well, yeah, no. I think that is, we've talked about it a ton.
We've hit on it a bunch.
Who's going to start? Who should start? Obviously, Dabo named Kelly, and I think that for right now, we should just let it play out, see what happens. I mean, we all know all the quarterbacks are going to get playing time this weekend.
They're all going to be in.
This is spring game 2.0. So once we get past this week, we can see how things roll. I still think A&M game, you're going to see Kelly play the whole game. I don't think Dabo's going to bench him in the third quarter because he hasn't thrown a touchdown, or even if he's thrown a couple interceptions. I just think for right now, he's proven, just ride the train.
Yeah, and I think it'd be different if it was coming into last year and Trevor was vying for this spot without seeing a proven Kelly Bryant, win 12 games last year. That, I think, is what really, makes the decision easy for Dabo, is that he can trust this guy, and he's proven it last year outside of 1 or 2 games that he can.
One more point that I want to make or touch on about this AP Top 25 poll, and we were talking about this earlier this afternoon. What team in the top 4 as of right now is going to lose first?
I'd like to say none of them, because that's just such a hard pick to make. I did look at the schedules for each of these teams. If I had to make one pick, I'd go Wisconsin against Michigan in week 6.
Ooh, that's late.
All of these
Nobody's
teams have
stumble.
a relatively, and you might argue with this because you think South Carolina is going to beat Georgia week 2.
I could
But
circle it.
Outside of that, I don't see really any big hurdles for any of these teams to climb before the conference schedule really kicks into gear.
I mean, Clemson, yeah. Alabama, yeah. I mean, well, you could say that the A&M game is going to be tough. I know that you feel like we've got that in the bag. Personally, I think that game shouldn't cause a scare. I'm just looking at South Carolina, a team that way back in 2010, an improbable win against Alabama at home. They beat them 35-21, I believe. So it's happened in the past, okay? There is some precedent there, and it could happen again. Deebo Samuel, Gamecocks have got weapons. It's a Will Muschamp team. They're going to have a good defense. And if Georgia's sleeping and they don't show up like Alabama didn't 8 years ago, it could happen.
Could, but I don't think it will. I think
it's the most likely team to lose in the first couple weeks.
In the first couple weeks, that is valid.
I mean, you're not high on Michigan, but yet you have them beating Wisconsin?
Well, it'd be a road game. I believe Michigan, they have the talent to beat a team like Wisconsin. I don't think it'll happen.
If Georgia's playing at home against South Carolina, no question Georgia wins. I'm just saying because it's on the road, it's happened before.
It's happened. Like I said, I don't think it's going to happen. I think Georgia's just too talented across the board. I'd take Jake Fromm any day over Jake Bentley if you had to match those guys up one-on-one. The Georgia defense is going to be as good as advertised as it was last year. So I'm taking the dogs in that one, and I think up until week 5, honestly, you're not really going to see any of these teams really falter up until maybe that Michigan game for Wisconsin. But those are probably the 2 games that have the most chance for an upset. One last thing I wanted to touch on was a team outside the top 25 to keep an eye on. I mentioned that Florida, I thought was a little bit overrated there, was Memphis. The group of 5s weren't getting a lot of love. Memphis averaged 45 points a game last year. Arguably the second best team in the AAC outside of UCF last season. They got a guy, David Moore, coming in this year to replace Riley Ferguson. And their schedule's very favorable. They easily could win that conference because they have UCF at home this year. I think Memphis, you got to keep an eye on them. Really high-powered offensive team that could make some noise this season.
NC State. I think they're gonna make some noise in the ACC. They got the position quarterback. He's gonna be a threat, and I just think that even a team like South Carolina, I personally think South Carolina's gonna get 8 to 9 wins this year, regular season. Now, whether or not they get to double digit in postseason, that remains to be seen. But I think both of those teams, in addition to Memphis that you already mentioned, could cause a stir a little bit. But yeah, I think it's top 4 right now, pretty safe. Shouldn't be any issues. We got to cut to a quick break. When we come back, we'll be diving into some more college football talk. Stick with us.
Men, are you tired of those daily blue enhancement pills that take days, weeks, or months to work, if they ever work at all? Listen up. Now you can take Red, the new natural male empowerment pill that works on demand. Even your partner will notice the difference the very first time you use it. To prove Red won't disappoint like the others, you're invited to participate in our nationwide I Take Red Partner Reaction Guarantee Trial. We're seeking participants for this nationwide trial, not only to prove it works the very first time you try it. We guarantee your partner will also notice the difference. Forget those slow-acting blue pills and join those who proudly take Red. Over 50,000 pills have already been claimed and supplies are limited. So to ensure your participation in this free nationwide trial, you must call now.
Superior virility on demand. You only need to take Red once to see what all the fuss is about. Call immediately to participate in our free nationwide trial. Call 800-506-2734. 800-506-2734. Be one of thousands to proudly say, I take Red. 800-506-2734.
With summer here, shouldn't you look as hot as a burger on the grill? If you want to look and feel as hot as noon on a summer day in the South, call Urban Nirvana. With the best stylists around, you'll get the kind of pampering you deserve, and the day spa will have you feeling as cool as a cucumber. And being able to buy a gift certificate online is better than a splash in the pool. Log on to urbannirvana.com, buy your gift certificate, and print it right from your own computer. Urban Nirvana, McBee Station in downtown Greenville.
Ready to tailgate for the big game? Food? Check. Drinks? Check. Ice? Don't worry. Twice the Ice has you covered with an option of bulk ice or 16-pound bags of filtered non-chlorinated water for your cooler to ensure your day is twice as nice at half the price. 24/7. Bring your cooler to any 18 locations in Anderson and Pickens County.
It's too hot, get some ice. Need a cool drink, just chillin' nice. Got me a big old bag of ice. This hot deal so cool, it's twice as nice.
Are you ready to go all in on a car? Granger Nissan knows what car will fit you and your family because they are a leader in the market with competitive inventory. They have everything for everyone. Granger Nissan is a family business, so they know the importance of taking care of the ones we love on the road. You can drive with confidence and ease because Granger Nissan has all new vehicles with a lifetime powertrain warranty. Granger Nissan is not just in the car business, they're in the people business. Stop by Granger Nissan of Anderson on 3510 Clemson Boulevard.
Get equipped for anything with a John Deere 3025E compact tractor from Ag Pro. It's equipped with a low price of $139 per month, and we have all the attachments you'll ever need. Request a quote at agproco.com. Offer ends October 26, 2018. Subject to approved installment credit with John Deere Financial. 20% down payment required. Taxes, freight, setup, and delivery charges could increase monthly payment. See dealer for details.
It's football season, and emotions run high and hot, and it ain't all about the love. Embrace the hate and let it fly with the Hater Hotline. The Hater Hotline is open 24/7. Call the Hater Hotline, 864-986-6049. Then listen up during Out of Bounds every Monday for the great of the hate. The Hater Hotline, only on 105.5 The Roar. Sponsored by Bennett Equipment. If you need to rent it from Bennett.
Join Walt Deptula's Road Rage at Twin Peaks this Thursday for some awesome food, drinks, and of course the scenic views. Get sports delivered to you like only Walt can do, and enjoy the cold beer and the HD TVs live this Thursday at Twin Peaks on Woodruff Road.
If you have problems with the IRS, don't trust your personal information to a stranger on the other end of a 1-800 number. The Green Law Firm is local and looking out for you. For a free strategy session, call 271-7940.
Relax, Tigertown. Founders Federal Credit Union is in Clemson. Our full-service office is located on Old Greenville Highway next to Walmart Neighborhood Market, just 2 miles from campus. And with 4 on-campus ATMs, Founders is the only financial institution you need in Clemson. Visit RelaxJoinFounders.com to see if you qualify for membership. Go Tigers! Founders Federal Credit Union is federally insured by NCUA and a proud partner of the Clemson Tigers.
Before any vehicle can be called an Anderson Ford certified pre-owned, it must pass a stringent 172-point inspection by their factory-trained techs. An Anderson Ford certified pre-owned ensures your satisfaction with its extended warranty, roadside assistance, and vehicle history report. Buy your Anderson Ford certified pre-owned with confidence from the Supreme Team at Anderson Ford. Exit 19 on Clemson Boulevard. Anderson Ford. Online at AndersonFordSC.com.
Booking your flight to see the Tigers play this weekend? Before you leave home, make sure your ID will fly by switching to a real ID with the correct documentation at any SCDMV branch. Visit scdmvonline.com for a complete list of what's needed to purchase your real ID today and see if you're eligible to buy yours from the comfort of home. Again, that's scdmvonline.com and search Real ID. Don't delay. Buy your real ID today.
Not only does Maserati Lotus Greenville on Lawrence Road have one of the largest selection of luxury pre-owned vehicles, they also have the best luxury automotive repair facility in the upstate. The skilled technicians at Euro Automotive Upstate work on all luxury and domestic vehicles with pricing of an independent shop. Mention this ad and get 10% off service. Euro Automotive, upstate trusted quality with affordable pricing at Maserati Lotus Greenville, 1450 Lawrence Road.
And now, back to Jay, Bradley, and Evan.
Welcome back, AFR on your radio this fine Monday evening. Coming to you, Clemson, South Carolina, WCCP 105.5 The Roar. Jay Smith, Bradley Kendall, Evan McDowell in the back running the board for us. Bradley, we've talked about AP Top 25 poll. Threw in a little bit of Kelly Bryant, Trevor Lawrence discussion there.
You knew that was coming up. It's a local radio quarterback announcement.
Middle of segment one. But now we've got a preview. College football kickoff weekend.
It's about time.
About time, man. A few days away. We got some notable week one games we want to hit on, and I'll let you start.
I, for one, believe that college football has already begun. Unlike some people, I believe week 0 should be included, especially when you got, the Rainbow Warriors
give
of
them
Hawaii
some love.
chucking it out there. I mean, what's crazy is the fact that some of those teams, like New Mexico State, will have played 2 games by Thursday night.
Yeah,
that's a quick way to introduce the season.
Only way for those teams to get exposure.
Exactly.
I mean,
you got to play
the
on the high school football nights that no one else is paying attention. But if you want to get in contact with us via the phones or on Twitter, the Northland Communication Hotline, we got 864-654-7627, or you can tweet at us at After Review Show. We'd love to hear from you. We had a few tweets already come in earlier. But yeah, like you said, we have some week 1 games we want to touch on. Some big ones and some games that you might not have really looked into much leading into week 1. We'll start with one that I'm really looking forward to cap off the first night game of the season. Michigan Notre Dame. Saturday night game. Michigan's a 1.5-point favorite. What I thought was crazy was the last matchup you had was in 2014. Notre Dame shut out the Wolverines 31-0. So obviously Jim Harbaugh's looking for a better game this time around. Jay, what do you got on this game in terms of who you think will win?
I mean, Notre Dame's defense, they're older now, they're wiser, and I think that they're going to be able to carry the load. But you look at the flip side, Michigan, they need that statement win. We've talked extensively about Harbaugh and maybe the growing impatience in Michigan. Right now, everything seems to be smoothed over. One of the things I saw, though, is that their star receiver, Tariq Black, is going to be out for this game.
That's a big loss.
I still think Michigan's defense is the best unit on the field. Overall, I think Notre Dame's defense is good. I just think Michigan's defense is the only thing that's going to keep them in this game. And whether or not Shea Patterson goes off, I don't think is going to have as huge an impact as how the defense is. But this will be our first slobber knocker of the season. I know, Evan, I can see the eye roll. I can hear the eye roll, but it's going to be a slobber knocker.
Just hoping this game is in the 60s so you don't have to bring that word up again next week. But he's right. Michigan was the number 1 ranked total defense from last season. They returned 9 of those starters going against the Notre Dame passing game that was not exactly lighting up the scoreboard. They were 102nd nationally last year and lost a lot of guys, namely Equanimous St. Brown. That's a mouthful. One of the best names of last season. So that's kind of the key point that I'm looking at here. I think Brandon Wimmish is a good quarterback, but even in the bowl game last year, he was replaced in the second half by Ian Book. So unless he is a different quarterback coming into this season and can do more than just run the ball around, you're going to see Notre Dame really struggle to score some points.
It's going to be, I think, 1st to 20. I think the first team that hits 20 points is probably going to walk away with a victory here. And this game is at Notre Dame, I believe.
At Notre Dame. Game day is going to be there. Yeah, going back to the original first game day they had there, course is excited, and we are too. I can't wait.
I mean, it should be a fun game to watch. I just, again, all joking aside, I do think it'll be a defensive slugfest. I think it'll be a low-scoring affair. It could look ugly at times. We just don't know how the quarterbacks are going to perform with these caliber defenses. So, I don't know. I mean, we'll just have to see.
One fan base is going to be really sad waking up on Sunday mornings. One's going to be extremely, extremely happy. I think this personally, outside of the Miami LSU game, is one that both coaches really need to win. Harbaugh needs that signature win. When we said in the past, he is 1-7 against his rivals.
Is this a signature win? Notre Dame season opener on the road? Is it like propel you to new heights kind of win?
With what you have ahead of you, this is a very big win. If you can get it done week 1, especially because it's on the road. I mean, if Harbaugh gets this under his belt, going into the Big Ten slate, that proves to people across the country Michigan's for real.
I understand where you're coming from. It is a non-conference game for them because Notre Dame's technically independent. I think they're stretched later in the season. Wisconsin, at Michigan State, Penn State is far more important. If they can get through that stretch 2-1, if they can get through it 2-1, that's a success.
But you got to realize that if they do happen to lose this game, the pressure on them throughout the rest of the schedule is enormous.
It's a non-conference game, though.
It's enormous, though. Think about if Georgia would have lost that game against Notre Dame last year. That changes the entire landscape if they lose to Auburn. They don't make the playoff. last year if they lost to Notre Dame on the road. So
That's
I think it's
fair.
going to play a big impact.
That's fair. We got somebody, we got another caller on hold here. Let's welcome in Trey from Clemson, South Carolina. How are you doing, Trey?
Doing good. How are you doing?
Doing good, man.
Great. Can't complain, man.
What can we do for you this evening?
So I listen to all the radio shows on here a lot, and nonstop I hear about how great Clemson is this year, and also how weak our schedule is compared to previous years. And I guess that comes off of how weak the ACC is looking as a whole this year. How do you think that will affect us, assuming we are going to go postseason? How do you think that will affect us in the postseason?
How the weak conference schedule will affect us, just so I understand your question?
Schedule as a whole, I think he's trying to say.
Yes.
Okay. I mean...
Yeah,
Well, I think non-conference for Clemson, and this is something that Dabo has indicated is important to him, is playing marquee non-conference games. You look at the home and home with Georgia. We've played Auburn now, home and home. I think we just scheduled one with LSU and maybe Texas, or are we in talks to do it? I know we've scheduled one with LSU.
It's developing.
We've got A&M. So those are SEC schools, which obviously the SEC, a lot of times gets the benefit of the doubt. It's considered the premier conference. But yeah.
I'd argue that this schedule is not even that easy. Compared to years past, like last year, we had one of the toughest stretches in September any team's ever had, and we were able to come out of that unscathed. But you get at Texas A&M. I know I've said that might not be a big test, but it is a road game against an SEC school. At Florida State. Florida State's a new and rebuilding team this year. NC State's out for blood at home against us, and we got to go to Boston College and then South Carolina to close the season out. So.
Yeah, but again, to Trey's point, all the games that we play this year, we are the considerable favorite.
Yeah.
Like there's really no game where we should falter. We could falter. We could have a Syracuse. We could have a Pitt game this year.
And that may be not a bad thing.
Well, and what I'm saying is we might have that, and I think it's impossible or nearly impossible to go 12-0. I think we will have a loss in there, but once we get to the postseason, we're going to face teams on a completely different caliber, and we are not going to see that caliber. I think besides maybe or Boston College, maybe NC State. I don't think Texas A&M and Florida State are going to put too much trouble up there because I barely see those being winning teams this year because they're brand new teams with new coaches. And
fair point.
Jimbo Fisher's been tearing things up in Texas A&M from what I've been hearing.
Yeah, I think it really depends on who you play in that playoff game because if you take it on a team like Wisconsin, they're talented, they're a good team, but I think if it's a lot different than facing a team like Alabama.
How serious you take each game. We hear Dabo talk the last few years, he's always said, you can't be 12-0 until you're 2-0. You can't be 12-0 until you're 3-0. So you've got to treat each game as the most important game. I think that's the type of mentality that Dabo is trying to sustain at Clemson with the success. And I think if you treat each game like it's the most important game, even though we all know Furman, Syracuse, Georgia Southern, Boston College, whoever, isn't going to be that much of a challenge. If we treat it like it is, then theoretically you would be more mentally prepared for when you get to the postseason and you have those marquee matchups. Because I don't disagree with your point at all. We're going to see whoever we play in that semifinal game is going to be, head and shoulders above the teams that we've played regular season. I don't think that's inaccurate.
Yeah, and I think this may be one where you kind of, if you're Clemson and you're in Clemson's shoes here, you might want to root for South Carolina or Miami or teams like that to be nationally, top 10 ranked to close the season out. So it's a significant test going into that playoff.
And you want Texas A&M to do well the rest of the season.
Oh, absolutely.
You want them to win 9 or 10 games. You want South Carolina to win 9 or 10 games. Obviously, you want to beat them in the head-to-head. But every team that you play, like Louisville, Florida State, you want those teams to do well. So, I think that what Trey was saying was interesting, but at the same time, I think that with Clemson's, with what they try to do to take each game as the most important game, I think that will help them in the playoff because I think we all expect them to make the playoff.
Yeah, and Dabo's the coach you want to do this. We've seen in the past he's proven that he is able to motivate these guys no matter who we play. And he has years in the past where we've proven we can lose those games, and he can show that as evidence to hey, you got to come out and play your best football week in and week out. So yeah, I know we've debated back and forth between do we want South Carolina to win or not, but yeah, this season you probably do with the schedule we have out of us. You want South Carolina to be 10-1. Going into that last game of the year.
You want them to beat Georgia, or you want them to have a big win on their schedule so that when you play them at the end of the year, if you're able to get out of there, or you're able to win at home against South Carolina, it looks good.
And speaking of Miami, a team that we would like to see do well because we anticipate them being a good team this year and probably facing them in the ACC championship. Tough test week one against LSU. Neutral site game. It's going to be on a Sunday afternoon, which will give you a little bit of flavor of what's to come later in the season with Sunday and Saturday games. But I think it's interesting. The last 4 meetings between these teams, you've had a 2005 Peach Bowl that was a 40-3 win for LSU. 1988 Miami won 44-3. LSU won 20-0 and 30-0 back in the 60s. I'm anticipating this game being a little bit closer than this.
It'll be close.
Hopefully, I think this is the game where both teams have a giant chip on their shoulder. Miami obviously coming off a 3-game losing streak last year.
Miami, they don't want to lose 4 in a row. I mean, they had such a hot start last season, and then all of a sudden they just disintegrated the last 3 games. So for them, this game is huge on erasing what happened at the end of last year and starting fresh.
And for LSU too. I mean, for Ed Orgeron and even Joe Burrow, these are 2 enormous. This is one enormous opportunity for both of these guys. Orgeron is arguably, in terms of Power 5 coaches, probably the one that's on the hottest seat right now. If he doesn't get this job done, he doesn't really have a signature win like we talked about with Harbaugh. He needs this game under his belt to propel him to this SEC schedule.
So you think his seat gets a little warm if he loses?
If you lose to Miami and what we got ahead of you, Evan touched on it early on in the show, or even before that, LSU's got a gauntlet ahead of them. It's not an easy task.
Yeah.
This is a game you got to win to not only build confidence, but gain some respect around the country. Because let's be honest, LSU hasn't exactly been the most respected team in the last 3 to 4 years.
No, and Miami gets routine hype, whether or not it's deserved is a whole nother conversation, a whole nother debate. I think though that LSU. They do need a win. I agree with you. I think Orgeron needs to get that landmark victory. I'm not sure if Miami week 1 is a landmark victory.
Top 10 game.
I think Miami really, really, really doesn't want to have a 4-game losing streak.
And Walt said that LSU wasn't really getting much respect nationally in terms of being able to beat Miami in this game. I think they can do it. I'm going to predict LSU to win this game. I think Joe Burrow is a really talented quarterback. Hasn't had much experience after transferring from Ohio State. But between him and Malik Rozier, I'm probably going to take Joe Burrow in this. And LSU's defense, while it wasn't the turnover chain flashy defense in Miami last year, is pretty darn good. They got a guy, Devin White, who's a preseason All-American linebacker, who's going to give Miami fits on the defensive end. I think it's going to be a close game. I think LSU can come out on top.
I think Miami wins this game. I think that this is not the end of the road, per se, for LSU. They have games later in the season. Yes, it's a tough stretch. I'm not saying it's not a tough stretch. But they have opportunities. They've got Auburn. They've got Georgia. They've got Alabama. They've got Mississippi State. They've got Texas A&M. So they have chances.
I hear a lot of losses in there.
Orgeron, players, they've done it before. They've had games where they, everything just works. It clicks. There is precedent there. I think when you look at this particular matchup and everything that Miami's done in the offseason to ensure that they don't continue the skid that they finished with last year, I give the Canes the edge. I think it's going to be a great game. I think it's going to be a great game.
On its own, on a Sunday.
Both teams need the win.
And speaking of the game on its own, we'll touch on one more before the break. Virginia Tech, Florida State, an interconference matchup week 1, which you don't see a lot. Nice little ACC
Monday,
flavor
I believe?
on a Monday night.
That closes off the opening weekend.
You get 5 continuous days of college football to kick off your season. So clear your schedule. National attention is going to be on this matchup here. Florida State, obviously bringing in Willie Taggart. And Justin Fuente and Virginia Tech you talk about teams that aren't getting much respect early on. No one's talking about the Hokies. Everyone's assumed it's Josh Jackson or bust. They lost a ton on defense. We're not going to give them much respect.
Virginia Tech finished 13th ranked in D last year. They are losing a lot of talent, but I guess the question is really, can they spoil Taggart's welcome party? Because it's a night game, like you said. It's a national stage Monday night. You got a new coach. Is it the beginning of a new era at FSU? Could be, but Virginia Tech, I mean, they have the talent. They have the defense. And I think they want it. I think they really do. And it's just until I see an FSU team led by Willie Taggart, I'm going to have a hard time putting my faith in them.
And if you're a Florida State fan, just calm down. As Aaron Rodgers said, in a press conference a couple years ago, relax. It's going to be okay. Taggart's a good coach. He did well at Oregon last year. Francois is now your starter. Hopefully, and when I say hopefully, he does not get hurt again like he did last year against Bama. You got talent across the board. The defensive line is going to be good. Florida State's going to be good.
FSU is not going to go anywhere.
They're not
going to fade.
The talent will not be leaving the state of Florida.
No. I think Virginia Tech's defense, is the difference, unless Aguayo just goes off and nails like 7 field goals, and it's a really low-scoring game. But I think I'm going to give the nod to Virginia Tech in this one.
I'm going Florida State. I think at home, you got the tomahawk chop going throughout the years of Virginia Tech. I think Josh Jackson's a good quarterback, but I'm going to take the Florida State defense here in a slobber knocker, you could say.
Another slobber knocker.
A very tight game. I'm taking the home crowd.
Lots of great games week 1. Be sure to tweet them at us after the show. We'd love to hear your opinions, your thoughts. We got to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll wrap up the show, preview Clemson and Furman. That's next.
Tackle the day like a tiger when you slept like a baby. At 627 Congaree Road and can handle any special request or custom order. And customers know that if their mattress isn't just right, Engineered Sleep will take care of them and leave them sleeping comfortably. Call 866-244-0898 or online at engineeredsleep.com.
If you are in need of eye care and would like a more personal experience, consider Westminster Vision. We are locally owned and staffed with 3 convenient locations to serve you in Clemson, Pendleton, and of course, Westminster. We offer a large selection of eyewear and all types of medical care, even on Saturdays. So for quick, reasonable service you can trust, call us for an appointment at 646-3535.
Trust your vehicle's lubrication to Chevron Havoline Motor Oil and the team at Express Lube and Car Wash in Central. I take my car there, and so should you. Express Lube and Car Wash is your oil change specialist offering premium Chevron Havoline Motor Oil products to help keep your vehicle in top running condition. You want to be sure your vehicle is running its best with Chevron Havoline Motor Oil. Express Lube and Car Wash in Central, 1273 18 Mile Road, across from Walmart. It's 639-6056. Again, 639-6056.
With summer here, shouldn't you look as hot as a burger on the grill? If you want to look and feel as hot as noon on a summer day in the South, call Urban Nirvana. With the best stylists around, you'll get the kind of pampering you deserve. And the day spa will have you feeling as cool as a cucumber. And being able to buy a gift certificate online is better than a splash in the pool. Log on to urbannirvana.com, buy your gift certificate, and print it right from your own computer. Urban Nirvana, Magby Station in downtown Greenville.
And now, back to After Further Review.
Welcome back. AFR is on the radio. Thanks so much for spending your Monday evening with us. Just a few days away from kickoff. We are excited. Saturday, Clemson taking on Furman. Before we get into the preview for this weekend's season opener, Bradley's giving me the elbow in the ribs during the break. He wants to talk about another Week 1 game. Bradley, what's it going to be?
We were previewing this on our Twitter page. Underrated matchups. I love these games. I love the games that no one's talking about. The teams that aren't getting much respect. The game that you might just happen to turn to on Pac-12 after dark. When you're about to go to sleep at 11 o'clock Saturday night. This one's not a particular Pac-12 game, but one that I have my eyes on in particular. Ole Miss, Texas Tech. Ole Miss obviously banned from the postseason this year, so they need to take whatever big matchup they can get. This game's being played out, I believe, in Jerry's World, I want to say. 1.5-point line, Texas Tech favored. Two teams that are kind of rebuilding. Texas Tech lost a lot last year. One of the most high-powered offenses you saw in the country. Evan's a big Cliff Kingsbury guy. I love him as well. I think Matt Luke at Ole Miss is doing some great work after a 6-6 season last year. And their last 4 matchups, no team scored under 42 points. So you're going to see some points in this one as well. I love the combination between Jordan Tamu and A.J. Brown, one of the most underrated combinations across America. And Texas Tech, the Big 12 defenses don't get a lot of respect. This in particular one, I think, could be a very good defense for Texas Tech this year. A far better one than last year. They returned 9 tacklers on defense. And you're going to need a defense if you're going to stop any offense in this game because both offenses are going to be prolific. I've got Texas Tech winning this game by 8 points. I got them winning 42-34. I think it's going to be first to 42 wins. 42 wins. 42 wins, yeah. Over the course of 42 seasons.
I mean, for me, there are some games, and we've actually touched on a handful of them. One that stuck out over the summer was Oklahoma, Florida Atlantic. It's a game that not a ton of people were paying a lot of attention to, but could have the potential to be interesting. West Virginia, Tennessee was the game that I went with.
That game's already over.
I think that it shouldn't really be close. Now, I did see that they're going to have bad conditions in Charlotte for this game. And if you're Tennessee, probably questioning the toughness of West Virginia because, they don't play in the SEC, so they're probably a pushover because they're the Big 12. Well, Will Greer, in the middle of that thunderstorm in Charlotte, he's going to throw lightning bolts all over that field. And Jeremy Pruitt is probably going to go to the locker room at the half scratching his head because he's not going to know what's going on.
Somebody please make an edit of Will Greer dressed up as Zeus. Please do that. That would be phenomenal.
With that flow, yeah.
Exactly.
I can see it.
Yeah, I mean, a Tennessee fan on Twitter even broke down the total weight for each team. It's trying to find some upper edge that Tennessee might have on West Virginia.
Tennessee fans are just crazy.
That's a stretch,
They're
man. Like
crazy.
it was only like a 400-pound difference too, out of like 53 guys, which isn't even saying much.
I mean, we've talked about this when we previewed the SEC. We talked about Tennessee specifically. It's going to be a rough year.
I don't know why you're really excited about football season if you live out in Knoxville. Yeah, Evan, I know you're the Bear, man. You got to have something back there that
something deep
that we're not looking at. Give me a D3 game if you got one.
Oh man, I didn't dive that hard into the D3 yet because you could argue that all of those are underrated and underappreciated week one games because you're not going to have more than probably 800 people at any of those. But I took a Big Ten game. It's actually a conference matchup taking place Thursday night, so it's one of the first ones here.
I know which one you're
talking about. The official week one, yeah, because I told you before the show. Northwestern at Purdue. I like Pat Fitzgerald. I like Northwestern. This team won 10 games last year, and they're returning 14 starters from that team. So you could see them maybe make a little bit of noise there in the Big Ten. They lost their all-time leading rusher, Justin Jackson, but they have high hopes about Jeremy Larkin coming in to replace him, and their senior quarterback, Clayton Thorson, coming back as well. Northwestern got a 4-game winning streak against Purdue, and these two teams combined over the last 5 games of last year went 9-1. And the only reason Purdue lost was because they played Northwestern. So I think this is going to be a fun game. I think you're jumping into some conference action week one right off the bat. And it's Thursday night, so it's one of the first games on the air for this week. So I think there's a little bit to get excited about there if you're a Big Ten fan.
Yeah, no,
definitely gives you a reason to tune in.
Voiced my opinion on
a
Northwestern all off season. I think they're going to be a very
$270 million new facility.
Hunter Johnson is going to be living the life out there in Northwestern for sure. Great academics, great facilities now out there.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, hey, got to transition now into the season opener for Clemson this weekend. Clemson and Furman. This game, I believe, the series started back in 1896. Clemson's first season of football. I'm not sure if it was their first ever matchup. I think it was. I'm not getting a head shake, so I believe it was the first ever football game for Clemson was against Furman. Really, though,
not much has changed since.
The most interesting. Well, I mean, Furman hasn't beaten Clemson since 1936.
37 was a 0-0 tie.
Yeah, 0-0
that counts
tie.
for anything.
So, not much to talk about this game besides the fact that a Clemson student, Harris Roberts, is going to play quarterback for Furman. He's enrolled in some sort of cooperative educational exchange program, so this allows him to play football at one school and he can pursue his degree at another. So he's getting his bachelor's in pre-engineering from Furman, and then he's getting his second bachelor's from Clemson in mechanical engineering.
I'm sure if any player from Clemson has a class for this guy here, Dabo's probably telling him, just shut your mouth. Don't say anything.
Yeah.
He know who he is, know who he plays for. Probably wouldn't even matter. Honestly, I think this game is going to be over by the time the ball probably gets kicked off.
Well, kickoff is 12:20, so you're thinking by 12:45, you should be able to go get you some concessions.
The goal in this game would be to see how the players play. You want to see everyone in the depth chart be able to get some playing time.
Of course.
I think we both want to see how the quarterbacks play.
No injuries.
No injuries. Kind of a tune-up game. The spring game
is a spring game 2.0.
Well behind us. It's a spring game 2.0, exactly, leading into the Texas A&M game. So fully anticipate Clemson to have no problem here at all. Furman did have one of the most prolific offenses in FCS last year, but that's FCS. This is a whole different ball game.
Well, they were 8-5 overall. So they went 6-2 in the Southern Conference. They did lose to Wofford in the second round of the FCS playoffs. Wofford, I believe, ended up going to either the quarterfinals or the semifinals. But yeah, I mean they're a decent FCS team. I think Wofford and the Citadel, though, are probably the premier FCS teams in the state of South Carolina. But again, this game is more about getting all the players, quarterbacks, everybody, playing time, getting them that real game experience. because you can't simulate that at practice.
No, you can't. I hope Clemson comes in here and just, takes care of business. Don't mess around. Don't try anything. Don't get into a Troy kind of game we had a couple years ago where, by third quarter, you're kind of scratching your head. So I will be saying through the Trevor Lawrence, I want to see him play. I fully anticipate him, playing well. But let's not jump into any conclusions based on this one game about who should start the week 2 game. Kelly's going to start.
No, Kelly's
going to start.
How, I guess, just to go off of it for a couple of minutes, at what point do you think that Dabo may be inclined to put in Trevor and switch it up a little bit?
I don't think Dabo's going to overreact to the first sign of, maybe weakness that Kelly has against the particular defense.
Because you and I know, all three of us know, when Kelly takes the field versus when Trevor takes the field, because it will happen in that game, there will be an audible increase in cheering. The place will go nuts when Trevor Lawrence comes into the game.
100%. I mean, from the hair to his ability to throw the ball, I think the crowd will definitely be behind him because everyone knows. I mean,
absolutely. But I don't think Dabo's going to be affected by that, like you said.
Oh, no, he is stuck in his ways. He knows what he's doing. I trust Dabo's call here. We even said it before in the call. I think Kelly's probably the smart pick here early on in the season because we know what he can do. We don't exactly know what Trevor can do. We know he's talented.
He's never
has not thrown
a pass,
a ball yet,
and he has a jersey hanging up in a bar in downtown Clemson. I'm just like, what? What?
Yeah, well, plenty of time for Trevor Lawrence later on down the road, but for right now, stick with Kelly. Yep. We know he's proven. We know what he can do. But in terms of when he might make the switch, I'm not entirely sure. I think probably early on in the ACC schedule will be the last opportunity you maybe see Trevor to actually take over the reins here. I think once we start getting into the nitty-gritty part of the schedule, the NC State game, the Florida State game, whoever he picks, that's he's going to ride out the rest of the year. Because you don't want to see an Auburn from 2 years ago, 3 quarterback set throwing the offense off.
It's just not it's tough to build chemistry and cohesiveness, especially with receivers, because receivers and quarterbacks rely so heavily on timing. And it was something that we saw in the spring game, Trevor throwing it to T a lot. I mean, that was a pretty popular hookup. And so, I mean, I don't know. I mean, obviously Kelly has relationships with all the guys on offense, but it'll be interesting to see who Dabo keeps in the game. Like if, when Kelly goes out and Trevor comes in for the Furman game, if he keeps the entire first team offense in to give Trevor that real game, okay, you're a starter now, quote unquote, kind of experience.
I think that's the goal. I mean, he's practiced as the first team quarterback throughout the offseason. He's gotten a flavor of what that's kind of like, but until he tries to come into a Texas A&M environment on the road, we really won't know exactly what he's made of. Like I said, I know we know how talented he is. We just don't know how he can handle that kind of environment. So I'd say the latest, like I said, I think the NC State game is probably the latest that we see any type of switch here. Maybe if we do happen to make a national championship game and Dabo wants to make that call at halftime, so be it. As long as we win the game, I think that's fine. But I think either one of these quarterbacks is easily capable of taking us to where we want to go this season. Something else I kind of want to talk about, we kind of touched on the Furman game a little bit. Jay and I both did a college football fantasy draft yesterday. Yes, that is a thing. Yahoo Sports, appreciate you actually including that for once. But just some guys that we drafted, by about the 4th or 5th pick, we were lost. I do off-season studies of college football teams, and I was completely lost.
It was a lot of guesswork. I luckily had the number 1 overall pick, so I grabbed Khalil Tate because his projected points were just out of this world.
If you didn't draft Khalil Tate, I would have slapped you.
Yeah, honestly, like I said, after about the 5th, 6th round, it was... And I had a lot of time because I was like... I had, I think, a 15 or 20 pick gap between my selections because I was first.
Yeah, and you weren't doing an NFL draft to go with it, too.
No, you were juggling multiple drafts. So I think that's something that hopefully catches on. It's unique, and we kind of talked about it before the draft actually started. We were like, how is this going to work? How's it going to work? Because most people who follow collegiate or professional football have played fantasy or at least know the basic in and outs. The first time I played fantasy football was my freshman year 4 years ago. And although I'm not a huge fan of it, I still know the inner workings of it.
Yeah, and it lets you know more players throughout the season.
Oh,
that part of it
increases your knowledge tremendously.
I love because, you're watching a casual Big Ten game with Beth Mowens calling it at noon. You might not recognize any of the players until you got one on your fantasy team and you're cheering for a wide receiver out of Northwestern. So just to touch on some of the guys, I know we all three kind of prepared some of the players that we drafted that we really didn't know about much early on, but after doing more research, you might want to kind of keep your eye on. One of them in particular, I referenced him early on in the show, a guy that really could make a huge difference, not only against Clemson, but nationally, is Greg Dortch out of Wake Forest. He's a wide receiver last year, 5'9", 165 pounds, small little shifty guy that had 4 touchdowns against Louisville last year. Unfortunately, he did injure his grabbed him in, I think, with about 5 games to go. But he had 10 touchdowns last year in the first part of the season. Ultra talented. Wake's going to be giving him the ball all year round. And if our secondary, has some gaps in it in the Clemson-Wake Forest game, watch out for this guy because he could easily burn us like the guy from Syracuse did last year. So keep an eye on him. Another guy was the Michigan senior running back Karan Higdon. Everyone's focusing on Shea Patterson. That's been the focus of the offense for the Wolverines in the offseason. But watch out for the running game. 11 touchdowns last year. He came 6 yards shy of hitting that 1,000-yard mark for Michigan. I thought it was interesting after reading more about him. He said if he would have reached the 1,000-yard mark, he would not have returned. So for Michigan, it's a good thing you didn't give him the ball on 3rd down and 6, the last play of the year, to get that 1,000-yard mark. Keep an eye on him as well. Those are my 2 guys. Jay, what you got?
Well, I didn't prepare for this particular segment, so you caught me off guard. So I had to do some quick Googling. But the guy that I pulled up, TJ Romming, I believe. He's
Dukey, baby.
Yeah, senior wide receiver for Duke. He's put up some great numbers. He's had plus 700 receiving yards the last 2 seasons. He was at 571 back in 2015. But when he catches the ball, it's just the yards after catch.
And I can speak as a Duke fan. He is a good player.
All 3 years, he has averaged more than 10 yards a reception.
Oh, yeah.
So he's not necessarily, and he only has, I think, 5 total receiving touchdowns. So he's not getting a ton of touchdowns, but he's still a reliable guy that they can throw to get the ball down the field.
Daniel Jones, their quarterback, is an NFL talent. He could easily go in the first 3 rounds, and this is the guy he's going to be relying on all year to impress those kind of scouts. Duke's an up-and-coming team. They've been...
No bias there.
Well, I'm just saying, David Cutcliffe, man, one of the most underrated coaches in the ACC.
I love everything. I think in some ways, David Cutcliffe is similar to David Shaw in what he's doing.
Not just by name.
No, well, and the type of program. I mean, think of Stanford, the academic prestige.
Northwestern, too.
Northwestern, partly. But when you think of academic schools, you think of schools like Stanford and Duke. And so I think what they're doing there, both of those coaches, is very similar.
Evan, you got a guy we got to look out for? I know we only got a couple minutes left, but who you got?
I guess just as a wild card, I'll throw out Benny Snell, running back from Kentucky.
Yes.
1,300 yards, 19 touchdowns last year. Not a guy you hear a lot about because people in Kentucky don't talk much football, but he is low-key one of the best running backs in the SEC, and he's slated to have a really good year this year. So if you didn't snag him last night and you need another running back and he's still available, I'd go pick him up.
I missed out on him, man. I baited. I took Drew Lock. I couldn't bail on taking that great guy out of Missouri. I would have gone Benny Snell if I had the opportunity, but
well, again, I think, like I said, college fantasy is a great idea. Hopefully, it gains some traction, and we keep playing it years to come. One last thing we want to touch on, though, we got an AFR College Pick'em League, and we will post more information about this on Twitter if anybody listening out there wants to get involved. We got some people in the group so far, but if you're interested, it's through ESPN. You should just be able to search AFR.
We kept it simple for
as the league name, and like I said, you'll just go through week after week. You'll pick the games. It's a straight league, so you don't have to do confidence where you pick games and then say how confident.
I can't believe you took that away.
I hate confidence.
Oh, it makes it so much more interesting, man.
No, we're straight up league. So yeah, if you're interested in joining that, please reach out on Twitter. Contact each of us individually, however you want to do it. But yeah, the league on ESPN is just AFR. So we look forward to seeing your face there.
Yeah, and most of the games we previewed throughout the week, I mean, that's the ones we touched on earlier. Those are all in the College Pick'em. We're curious to see if anyone wants to challenge us. We'd love to see it.
Real quick, score prediction, Clemson Furman.
I'd 58-3. It's going to be a blowout.
I'm going 52-10.
I'll take 47-3.
47-3.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, well, should be a lot of fun. Hey, we're excited. College football is back. Clemson Furman coming to you this Saturday. Been a lot of fun bringing you this edition of After Further Review. For Bradley, Evan, myself, we'll see you next time.